Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Hamilton County Commission staff meeting, June 13th, 2023. We'll start with introductions on the dais.
Christy Rischel, Assistant Clerk.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board.
Stephanie Summerall, Dumas Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm County Commissioner Denise Driehaus.
Jeff Ludo, County Administrator.
Charlie Annis, Prosecutor's Office.
And I'm Alicia Reese, Hamilton County President of the Board. So welcome, everyone. Okay, we've got a jam-packed schedule today. We're gonna be talking about the Tax Levy Review Committee recommendations for the Cincinnati Zoo. That's item number 1. But before we ask the chair, TLRC Chair, Gwen McFarland, to come forward, I'm gonna ask our administrator, Mr. Ludo, to kind of set the tone in terms of what we're getting ready to do.
Thanks, Madam President. And just in the interest of time, because I know we do have a packed agenda, I'll just make this really quick for folks who may be watching at home. The county has various voted tax levies that are on the ballot, typically in November. Everything ranging from senior services, children's services, the indigent care, health and hospitalization levy. One of the levies that we have on is the levy to support the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens. That is the voted tax levy that is up this year, would be on the ballot in November, presuming the board concurs to place it on the ballot. The Tax Levy Review Committee is commissioned by this Board of County Commissioners to review all of those requests for being placed on the ballot. So the Tax Levy Review Committee has been doing this for years on behalf of the board to provide an independent third-party recommendation back to the board in those areas of voted levy. So last night, the TLRC met to review the information related to the zoo levy. Gwen McFarland is the chair of the TLRC and is here to provide that recommendation to the board. To be clear, there is no vote required of the board today. We'll work with the board on a schedule for later public hearings, and should the board concur, a time to vote to certify a levy to the ballot. And with that, Madam President and Commissioners, I'll turn it over to Ms. McFarland.
Madam Chair McFarland, welcome. And thank you to all your members that are here and have worked on this from the TLRC board.
Thank you. I just want to thank you all for giving us this time to be able to share with you and give you an update on the outcome from our meeting last night and our discussions. I'd like to first start with the PowerPoint that we have, and I don't know. Okay. And so I will just have, I don't know who's going to kind of move it for me, but I'll just say next slide, please. Right here? Okay. All righty. Okay, again, good afternoon. The zoo has requested a renewal of a 15-year inflationary increase. And why is the zoo asking for this? They're saying that Hamilton County is the home of the #1 zoo in the country, which is a fact. The Hamilton County's partnership has been crucial to the zoo's success. If you'll just, well.
Christy, are you able to advance that? Because sometimes that can be, maybe it would just be easier to say that slide.
Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. And the risks that the consultants pointed out are real, and the zoo feels they need to take a proactive approach. And an increase would also allow the zoo to expand benefits to the Hamilton County residents with a year-round membership and a discounted ticket. So then we discussed, the consultants also consulted and discussed, next slide please, the UC Economic Impact Study. And basically that talks about how the tax revenue generated for the state and local government totaled over $34 million from fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 23. The fiscal impact averaged approximately $8.5 million annually in total sales, earnings, and lodging tax. And the Cincinnati Zoo maintains a vital role in stimulating the economy of the Hamilton County. The report also says, on the average, for every $1 of tax levy funding the zoo received, it generated $8.14 in economic benefit within Hamilton County due to the spending of non-local visitors. And also a statement was made that individuals that are non-local to Hamilton County are contributing new dollars to the local economy and otherwise would not have occurred had it not been for the zoo. So then the zoo levy millage options, we talked at length about the potential millage options. First option was a renewal with no increase at 0.46 million, which, as you can see, brings a revenue of just a little over 7.3 million, and cost per 100,000 homeowners would be $9.01. The second option was a renewal, an increase with a 5-year inflation of an 0.48 mil, bringing in revenue about $7.7 million, costing the average 100,000 homeowner $9.71 per month. And then the third option was a renewal and an increase in line with a 15-year inflation, 0.57 mils, generating revenue of just a little over $9.7 million and costing the average 100,000 homeowner $12.86. So it was a lengthy discussion as we tried to process through that and look at the things that we could have and should have done. So the next was, I'd like to zero in on more of the consultant's report. And you see, the zoo is a strong neighbor and community resource, and it identifies those areas that are resourceful for the community. The zoo is invested in our community and serving all of our Hamilton County residents. And the consult projects that the zoo can weather the nation's present economic challenges, including rising inflation, over the next 5-year levy cycle without a levy increase. Also, levy funding is used to cover 41% of operational costs, which now only covers 17%. The other thing is the age of the zoo. It's 150 years old, and with 40% of its facilities being more than 80 years old. Also, the consultant report stated an annual budget for major maintenance projects and reinvestments has increased from $2.5 million in 2018 to $5 million today and continues to rise. Expenses covered by the levy have increased 79% as well over the last 15 years. So the TLRC, as I said, met. We had a lengthy meeting last night, and the subcommittee recommendations are as follows. The zoo subcommittee felt that a levy inflation increase was warranted after 15 years of a flat millage. The full TLRC committee met on Monday, June the 12th, and discussed all of the 3 options which I outlined earlier. Majority of the TLRC present voted to recommend an increase of 0.57 mils. If you note, it was also a 4-2 vote, so it wasn't 100%, but it was a 4-2 vote, okay? The TLRC added an increase in levy revenues will be accompanied by a formal plan from the zoo to the commissioners outlining how this will benefit and directly benefit Hamilton County residents as a thank you for their contributions to the zoo through their property taxes. So the current levy requires as well that the zoo provide half-price days, 1 full day or 2 half days to Hamilton County residents annually. This was stopped during the pandemic in 2020 and has not been reinstituted. The TLRC recommends this be reinstated and tracked in future reporting. So in addition, the TLRC is requesting a discussion of the TLRC policy and guidance with the county commissioners for future levy reviews to be scheduled in any upcoming commission meetings. So what we're asking for is just a clarification and just looking at, are there other benefits or other ways to arrive at any type of levy dollars in the future. So the final slide, if you'll go to the next, yes, the zoo levy timeline. This is important because we're kind of under a crunch for time. The Secretary of State deadline for the ballot issue is August the 9th at the Board of Election at 4 p.m. Resolutions requesting the auditor to certify millage options, that is to occur by July the 29th in the commission meeting. And the zoo levy public hearing will be determined by the county commissioners. So that's yet to be determined. And the commissioners vote on the levy for the ballot by August the 8th during your staff meeting at that particular time. So that was basically a synopsis of where we are, where we've been, and where we want to go. And today we are presenting our discussion and the meeting that we have to you all this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you and your committee and subcommittee for working on this, and all the people that the zoo and the community who participated in your public sessions, as well as the administration. I do have some questions. I don't know if it's directly direct to you or the administrator on a couple of things. I want to first of all start out with certainly we love our zoo. The zoo is a major asset to our county, and I think that I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think most of the board recognizes that.
Yes.
We understand it.
Absolutely.
But I had a couple questions, because at the same time, we have been also focused on affordable housing. That has been our one of our number one initiatives. And from my perspective, I've got to make sure I balance that with, how can I say I'm for affordability, but then I'm raising taxes at a very vulnerable time. Our economy is just really not at the best. We also, I would ask Mr. Administrator, I think it's Butler County or one of those other counties where the taxes have shot through the roof and people are going nuts about it. We have an assessment coming up, don't we? Could you tell us about when that is? Because that is,
I would just like to add one
yes,
thing.
go ahead.
The TLRC is just making the recommendation.
Oh, yeah, no. This is
So
not on you.
again,
Yeah.
this doesn't, that's our role as
No.
the TLRC,
Yeah.
just to make the recommendation.
No. Thank you for the recommendation. This is not directed at the TLRC.
Okay.
But now when it gets over to our end, we've got to look at the total picture
That's
as
understandable.
well, whereas the TLRC, you've done your due diligence. So that's why I said my question may be for Mr. Ludo from a big picture standpoint. Can you answer that?
Yeah, just that the auditor's office routinely does reappraisals and reassessments, and this is one of those years that they do that. I know that they have released the letters on commercial valuations at this point. I don't know that residential has gone out yet. But as we learn more about what type of increases they're seeing, we'll be certain to let the board know that, but we should know something empirically here pretty shortly.
Okay, I just think that's when as we're making our decision, I'd like to have that information too, because to the taxpayer, they don't understand the different components. They just, all they know is I got a bill. So we would know that, so we could have some anticipation. Well, my question
It's concern because, and I just have to share that those individuals that, if you look at the 4-2 vote, their concerns were similar to yours as well.
got you. And the recommendation, you said there were 3 levels.
Yes.
What's the level of this one? Is this just
It's number
inflationary
3.
or the highest?
It's the highest.
The highest, okay, the full, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so I've got that. I had asked Mr. Ludo I'd like to see the report, the full report from the consultant, because on here, it seems like they're saying 2 different things. I know you only could bring out some of the high points. I think it's a big point that this consultant came back and said, the projects at the zoo can weather the nation's present economic challenges, including rising inflation over the next 5-year levy cycle without a levy increase. Can you explain now, what did the group feel once they had, this supposed to be independent body that said they can afford it? They don't need it.
I think that's why you see the vote the way it ended with the 4-2.
Gotcha.
And when you go dive deeper into the consultant's report, it gives more of an analysis of how they got to that point and what they said.
Gotcha.
And each one of you should have or will receive the consultant's report, the full report.
We haven't received it. Mr. Ludo, will we be getting it?
You'll be getting it probably right after this meeting.
Oh, okay. So we'll be getting it after.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know we hadn't seen it, so
Understand.
if we have questions, that might be the reason. I want to open up to Vice President Driehaus.
Thank you. And I know Lisa Webb, I think, is online too. I didn't know, she is, runs the
Yes.
LRC project or process through the county administration, so I didn't know if she had anything to add.
Well, Madam President, Madam Vice President, Lisa was online. She was only on audio, but she texted me and said she's actually on her way down and will probably be here in a couple of minutes. So I guess you found the ability to get down here. So she should be here shortly. So.
Okay, I just wanted to give her the opportunity to say something if she wishes. So, but in the meantime,
In the
meantime,
I thought that was
will
her
go.
hit.
How
I
about
thought
that?
those were her.
There she is. That's the time. Gwen, you're off the hook. We got Lisa down there.
Online. You apologize. This is why we keep a
So
change of clothes.
before you get started, I want to make sure none of us have a copy of the full report from the consultant.
You have not received the full report. It's submitted as a part of this presentation. It is also available for the public online from the time it was presented to the TLRC. But yes,
So the public has it now, but we don't have it.
it is posted online for the TLRC process.
Okay.
But yes, it has not been shared with the commissioners. It's traditionally shared as the recommendation is brought forward at this point.
Gotcha. Okay. Vice President Dreehouse.
No, again, I just want to give Lisa an opportunity to add anything that provides some context for us, or I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gwen did a fabulous job of presenting an overview of the TLRC process and the recommendations. I would just add that this is the culmination of over a 6-month process beginning in January from the TLRC, countless meetings, tours of the zoo, subcommittee meetings virtually on Zoom, as well as meetings in person, public hearings. I believe we had 20 speakers and 40 to 50 people in the Board of Elections for the public hearing, along with a penguin as a surprise appearance, who actually spoke very briefly in favor of the levy. But Bubba did a great job. And this is the end of the committee's process, making their recommendations to the commissioners. At this point, it's the commissioners' job to take a look at the consultant's report, the TLRC's recommendation, have your own public hearings, and make determinations for the ballot by, as Gwen said, that August 8th deadline.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so just to get started, I too want to thank the TLRC for the work that they do on this levy, they do on all the other levies. It's a volunteer group that we appoint, and they're very smart, they're very thoughtful, and I really appreciate, Gwen, your leadership there, and to the subcommittee in particular, but also to the whole TLRC, a big thanks for all their work and thoughtfulness in providing us with the recommendation. Also want to thank the zoo for being here. You're here in force this afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I feel a little cheated that there's not a penguin here, but I guess maybe next time.
This is not a public hearing.
I don't know. I thought we'd have an animal. So, no, but thank you all for what you do. I've had a number of tours at the zoo. I've had the privilege to go to the farm, which really was very exciting to see what you are doing to try to figure out a way to feed your own animals, and also the botanical garden piece, and it's really amazing. And the project that you have in the community too with the community farm, it's really impressive, and the bees and all the rest of it. So I'm a big fan. So I want to say that from where I sit, and I'm not prepared to make any determination today, but a couple things strike me. The one is, from my perspective, and I think you alluded to it, Commissioner, the context, I think, of the levies for me is very important. We have a number of levies in the county. We control 7 of them. We don't control the library levy. We don't control the parks levy. There are other pressures related to the property tax reevaluation, but we have 7 levies under which we have some influence, and we have to make decisions. And so of those 7, over the years I've been here, somebody asked me today, I think I've been here 7 years, maybe 6. We've raised levies 3 times for children's services, for seniors, and for mental health, which was the most recent one. So we have not increased the other 4, and the zoo is one of those other 4. And those include indigent defense, DD, and family services. And so I just want to emphasize, these are really difficult decisions that we have to make in the context of what the property tax or the property owner can afford, and the strain on them, and we hear a lot about that in our offices from people who pay property taxes, and then what we can do as a community by way of priorities, and what we can fund through the property tax levies. So I just want to put that out there because I think I speak for all three of us. I'll speak for myself now, though. I struggle always with these decisions about whether or not we should do an increase, how much the increase is, whether or not we should not do an increase. So I will continue to struggle, and I'll struggle through this one as I always do, but look forward to the public hearing that we'll have to hear from the public related to this in the context of all the levies. The other thing I did note, and you noted it too, Commissioner, is that the consultant suggested that a levy was not needed, and yet the TLRC recommended an increase, or I should say a levy increase was not needed. So I'm a little perplexed by that as well. So I'm wondering, and maybe we'll hear it at a public hearing, what information then was provided to the TLRC to have them do something other than what the consultant said might be the direction. So I don't know if you can shed light on that and provide us with that
really
context.
grappled with that yesterday evening. We had about a 60-minute conversation before we even got started with considering votes and options, really about how we look at the zoo levy itself. And the tone from the committee was really, when we look at it, all of the other county levies provide vital social services to people that really need it and help to close those gaps in Hamilton County. The zoo, as a recreation, as an economic driver in the community, provides a different benefit to Hamilton County and a benefit directly, potentially, to all Hamilton County taxpayers, all voters, all property owners, in being able to utilize the zoo and the economic impacts of it. So the committee itself was really looking at the zoo in a different sense because of that, and looking at the additional value more levy funding could bring to the zoo. And that was a huge discussion in their analysis, and eventually to that 4-2 vote at the meeting.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, and that's all. That's really all I have. I know we've got a little bit longer to go here in the process. So, Commissioner, I guess we intend to have a public meeting or a public hearing.
Yes.
A public hearing within the next month, and then a vote on the issue no later than really, they're due to the Board of Elections by 4 p.m. on August 9th. The commission is scheduled to meet on August 8th, so I would use that as the last date before a decision needs to be made for the ballot language. I have prepared resolutions to go on June 29th on the 3 options for the auditor to certify millage. Those will be the 3 options that the TLRC discussed: the no increase, a 5-year inflationary increase, and a 15-year inflationary increase. Those 3 are prepared. They will be brought forward. In addition, if the commissioners have any other amounts they'd like to consider, we can prepare those resolutions at that time too. Those resolutions being approved in no way constrain the commissioners one way or another on the levy sizing, but a request for the auditor's certification has to be done for any amount of millage to be considered in advance of the ballot resolution. So that's procedural. That'll take place on the 29th.
Thank you. Thank you again, and thank you all again.
Yes, so we are working with Lisa. We will have a public hearing on this, and we was hoping to have the date today, but we don't. But we'll have it by the end of this week. We'll be able to get that out. People can participate. I just want to piggyback on one thing that Commissioner Driehaus brought up. So we have 3 options. One is, well, there's actually 4 options. One is no levy.
True.
And then there's,
yes.
I don't want people to think that we automatically, and I had to be brought up to speed when I first got here and had a meeting with Mr. Ludo on these levies. I thought this zoo levy was ending, but I didn't know it was something that was going to keep continuing when he presented the other one. So I'm learning that this is one that wanted to continue. So that was news to me. But there's one option that there's no levy. Then there's an option that you keep what you have, no increase. Then there's an option of a 5-year inflation. And then there is an option of a 15-year inflation. What I guess, to piggyback on her question, what the TLRC trying to understand, we went from a consultant that said there doesn't need to be any increase. They can do what they can do within this amount of money. And the TLRC then jumped to the highest amount. And I know they were deliberating. I just wanted to maybe get some insight. They didn't come with let's just keep no increase or just a little increase. You went from the consultant and said you don't need it to we're going to the highest amount. So that was the part I'm trying to understand.
I think the key there was within the discussion of the committee, and it's probably one, Bob Fernier was the chair of the subcommittee on it and kind of led the review process. He might be a good resource. He's actually online teaching a course for NKU Law School right now, which is why he is not able to be here. But the discussion and the framework really looked at trying to add value to the region and what the zoo brings in. And that's why they felt that it would be a recommendation to go ahead and increase to that 15 years. And the zoo has done a ton of efforts, which you will see in the consultant's report, in terms of trying to hold their spending down, utility usage, the benefits to the community in terms of stormwater runoff, which impacts MSD costs, all of those issues. They've been a huge leader and proponent of all of those things. And the committee really felt like we were not I don't want to use the reward. We were holding them accountable for doing good things by keeping the levy flat. We weren't allowing them to grow and make more changes to the zoo with the additional funding.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just would like this, because I think of the zoo as tourism. But it's the only
Absolutely.
tourism
It's a huge
thing.
economic driver, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know how they got on this side of the coin.
Yeah.
And not on the coin of the tourism, that we have, funding instead of being on the tax side of this side. Yes.
It was definitely a discussion.
I'm sorry.
It's definitely a discussion. There were members who voted not in support of it, and I have to acknowledge that they wanted it to be known that it was a 4-2 vote. So 2 did not object to it at that, or did object. And so that was the questions that were raised, looking at what the consultants had reported, but then also looking at the economic impact the zoo has on Hamilton County.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. Thank you, Gwen, for your report. I appreciate it. And also the committee, TLRC committee, for all that you've done. It's obvious to me that the staff at the zoo and the personnel, the zoo board have done a great job as far as leveraging the monies that they have. So they've been good stewards of their money. You mentioned, Lisa, that the committee wanted to see more of what the zoo could bring to the county, and that's what their attitude or aspect was. But are you talking about expansion, that instead of doing the same things and doing a good job at that possibility of
I would
expansion?
never say that the zoo does the same things. I think Zane would probably jump all over me for that. The zoo continues to do new and impressive things every day. The committee, I think, universally would say that the zoo is doing a great job, and a great job with what they have, the footprint they have, the community that they're building. They've come a long way from even 10 years ago reviewing this levy in terms of their operations, their abilities to save money, and to continue to make the zoo thrive in the community.
Well, I'm just quoting
yes.
what you said, that the committee felt they could do more.
Yes.
That the zoo could do more. And so can you give me an example?
Yeah, well, what they really
The
want,
expansion part
what
of
the
it?
committee really wants from the zoo is partnership with Hamilton County taxpayers. And you see that in some of the votes and the recommendations. The committee, when they reviewed before they voted, made sure to attach that any increase would come with a formal report to the commissioners before the commissioners vote on the benefits that would be provided to Hamilton County residents as a result of this increase, freeing up more capacity for the zoo to be able to do that. Discounts on admissions, discounts on memberships.
Okay. You brought up my other point I was going to make. I remember there was this discussion last year or something as it relates to interest fees and tickets for people that did not live in Hamilton County, maybe to increase that amount of tickets,
Yes.
and that would bring in more revenue. Was that spoken about?
Very similar vein, yes. Really, but less looking at the more revenue and looking at benefiting Hamilton County taxpayers. But that was also discussed. I believe 2/3 of zoo visitors are outside of Hamilton County. So trying to recognize that as well and look at options available.
Okay, great. And also the consulting report that was spoken about earlier. I can't wait to read
Absolutely.
the full one, because I also have a concern as it relates to that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, yeah. I do have a couple clarifications. And like I said, I know our board, we love the zoo. We just really do. But we got to look at this from a very difficult lens, as Vice President Dreehouse said, because we hear people who may not, we love going to the zoo, but it might be somebody that don't never go to the zoo and they still got to pay. And so we just got to be able to have asked all the questions and gotten it all out in the open. You mentioned the discount for the Hamilton County residents, but you also mentioned they did that already, but stopped it during COVID. So in the millage that we already had, we were doing a discount.
We were doing a single day discount.
Single day, okay.
Yes. Over the summer.
And what's different on this one? Is it everyday discount?
This would potentially be a membership discount, similar to what potentially Franklin County, I know, does a discount for Franklin County residents.
Gotcha. Yeah, 'cause I know the zoo does a great job. You have a lot of free days and community days that you.
A lot of
that you
the
do.
community days have really ramped up, I think,
Yeah.
too, post-COVID as well.
The other thing, when I toured it, and Thane knows this, I love the zoo, but I did bring it up for the community of Avondale. When they look out their doors, they see a lot of construction. And I say this too. I say this not just with them. I say it with the University of Cincinnati, a whole lot of other people. They say, oh, we're broke, we need help, but there's a lot of construction going on. And so as an average person, you're saying, well, if you got, why don't you hold up some of this stuff? Like you would tell someone with their own budget. You're not going to go repair your home and fix your home up if you're broke. So how do we acknowledge that part? I know they say, well, we got private money to do these things, but to the people out there, they say you keep getting more land, which I know you need more land, but you know, some people are out of their homes. They see a lot of construction going on, and they say, well, why do I need to give you more money? And every time I see you got more construction. Did that come up, or how do we answer that?
It's come up. I think the committee was really looking at the zoo as that economic tourist driver versus the idea that they needed the money specifically to offset similar, more like a social service agency. And that's why they made the recommendation that they did. But I would definitely, I'm sure we're going to hear more from the zoo now that a recommendation's in place moving forward in the public hearing and additional discussions on those exact questions getting answered.
And Mr. Aludo, we're looking at our hotel, motel tax and all those things. I just don't feel like the zoo should be out here and they're an economic driver, they're a tourism driver. But then over here, we're kind of doing a levy that we do for social services. You know, somebody, senior citizen, or somebody got to get their medicine. But then over here, we're doing others as part of tourism and kind of leaving the zoo out. Can you also provide to us, so as we look at the total picture, if there are other things or options, or what does that mean to the zoo?
So is the question funding sources?
Yeah, I'm looking at all funding sources. I think we got to be creative. I don't think we got to do what we always been doing, because we're not in an always been doing society right now. I mean, things have changed. And I'm saying if there's another way, it may not be, I'm not saying it is, but is there another way to get to our, where we need to be to support the zoo, but not maybe on the backs of the everyday taxpayers who are funding hospitals and DDS, just like Vice President Dreehouse said, we've got indigent care. I know that went up, but we held it at a, so how do I say I can't give more to the hospital, but I can give more to the zoo? But maybe zoo maybe there's something we're missing as we're looking at a new funding model for our hotel motel, because they're, like you said, majority of the people coming from out of town, they're staying in hotels, and the zoo is not really getting their, I feel, just credit for what they're bringing to the economic region as it relates to tourism. And those kind of dollars. So I just wanted not to answer today, but I just said, put everything on the table. We can take a good buffet look.
Sure. Thank you for not requiring it today.
I saw the look on your face, like, wait a minute, hold it.
But the question's a good one, and to that point, if we had an additional funding option before today, we would have brought it to the board. But happy to do some additional digging on that, just to, again, as you said, and you continually have said, Commissioner, just to make sure the board has that holistic look at all of this. So happy to do that in
Yeah,
advance of the
just,
next.
I mean, I know we're just beginning, but just,
Yeah.
so we have all the buffet of everything on the table. We looked at everything. We were creative. They call it creative financing. Look at everything that we have and see, have we leveraged everything that is at our fingertips? And maybe we decide we don't want to, but at least we looked at it or we saw it, or if it's not something we can do, we know it. If it is something we can do, maybe we take a look. Vice President.
I did want to follow up on that because the zoo is a little bit of an outlier when it comes to our levies, because our levies are for people with disabilities, for people indigent.
Last resort, yeah.
Yeah, for people that suffer from addiction. This is so outside of so many of the levies functions that we do otherwise. So the thing about what you just said, it's an interesting idea. I think the challenge will be what other institutions in this community would view themselves as tourism attractions. Union Terminal, Music Hall. I mean, I can think of a multitude. And how do we distinguish from some of the other institutions that bring people in to your point, that pay hotel tax? And how do we sort through that? So if we're going to do a buffet, it's going to be a pretty big buffet. But I do think if we're going to look at the hotel motel tax in a way that we haven't before and expand our idea of what that might go to, that some of these other organizations are going to be stepping in and saying, whoa, wait a minute, what about us? And I think we just need to be cognizant of that if we're going to, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do the study or do the evaluation, but there are lots of organizations that are bringing in tourists to the community.
But they can say the same thing about these levies. We're in the same boat right now. There's some other people say, well, we need to get a levy because we're doing it. Music halls, so they doing a bunch of stuff in the community, just like you just said. Mm-hmm. They would want to, you in turn say, why'd you cut us off? Keep us going. So we're in that boat kind of because we've gotten away from social services. I think where we're at now by the zoo getting a general property tax type of situation, it now has stepped the toe into, a lot of others will say, well, why can't I'm doing stuff in the community and I'm, all of these things are very important to our community. So it's kind of like we got our toe in it already because, as you've indicated, we've gotten away from just the social services. So it's a hard thing. I just say we can look at everything, and we definitely would have to make that determination.
How long have we had the zoo levy?
40 years. There you go.
Okay.
40 years, so they couldn't hear on the thing.
Sorry, 40. The zoo's been around since
40 years.
Has been around since 1982. It's been 40 years, and it's passed every time with one exception, I believe, in the mid 80s, and went right back on and passed the next cycle.
I don't think anybody wants to vote against the zoo. They just want to make sure because they don't get a choice. You'll be
Right. The choice is with the commission.
It's not like now we'll put the 3 on and say which one you want to go with. We're putting on an all or nothing. That's the part I hate. But we put on an all or nothing, and I don't think people want to be a nothing for zoo. But at the same time, once sometimes people pass stuff, not just the zoo, but other stuff, then when they get the bill, then that's when they come running down here and get mad that what did you do? So just wanted to, like I said, I think all of us say it's really tough. This is the beginning for us, and I think we'll be hearing a lot with the public hearings, and I know a lot of folks will be here for the zoo at the public hearings. Commissioner Dumas, you had your light on. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did want to make a comment. As we look at the financing plan, can we also look at the philanthropy that takes place for the zoo? I know when I went to the elephant opening, I was really impressed with the people out in the community that are giving their own money. So just include that in the financing process, and so I can see how many people are doing that. So that's all I have.
Okay, well, we got our work cut out for us. TLRC, you've done your work. You handed it to us. Now we got to do it. Thank you all so much, Chairwoman McFarland and all of the members, because I know it's not easy. Thank you for your time and your volunteerism to look deep into these issues. We really appreciate it, and Lisa and administration. And thank you to the zoo for all of the tours that we've had. We go there to have fun, but we got some behind-the-scene tours to kind of understand how all the pieces come together. And we will have the date, hopefully by the end of this week, that we'll be able to put out for the public hearing, so we could hear directly from the public. All right, thank you. Thank you all. You're welcome to stay because we're so exciting here, but if you have to go, we understand. We might not be as exciting as at the zoo having our meeting. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, juvenile court budget.
Madam President, just real quick, as Ms. Igo comes to the podium. So this item is a follow-up to a report the board received last week and some more general reports the board have been provided over the past several weeks on a requested budget adjustment from juvenile court related to some staffing issues. As the board is aware, we've been working on a department by department, agency by agency basis with various county entities as we have looked to address issues associated with the attraction and retention of employees, as well as market rate adjustments, that type of thing. So when the new administration had come on at juvenile court, they'd engaged us in a discussion earlier this year about some specific needs that were not able to be taken into account in the last budget cycle. So as we started that, we had passed along the same direction we do whenever those requests come, and that is to work with the budget office and with HR, so that as we look at these, we make sure that anything that we do is able to be absorbed within the budget and is also consistent with how the board has approached personnel compensation issues in the past. So just in advance of Ms. Igo's presentation, I just want to say that we had that conversation early on, and they have been working with the budget office and with HR cooperatively. And this report is the culmination of that, and it's being provided for you today. We can have some discussion afterwards and provide some recommendations as to where we would go from here.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam President, Madam Commissioners, and staff. My name is Liz Igo, and I am the Board Administrator. Before I get started with my speech, I would just like to introduce some of the staff that I've brought along. And of course, I'm going to start with Judge Bloom, our Administrative Judge. Next to me is Ms. Dina Naderman. She is our Director of Behavioral Health. Next to her is Tim Starcher. He is our Head of HR. Next to Mr. Starcher is Brian Wolf. He is our Head of Finance. In the back row, we have Shannon Jackson. She is our Deputy Clerk. Next to the judge, we have Sarah Henry. She is our Administrative Magistrate. We have Ms. Kelly Leon, who is our Communications Director. In the following row, we have our Chief of Security, Chief Homeister. We have Mr. Julius Jasper, who is new to the court. He is our new Information Technology Director. Next to him, we have Ms. Jessie Dickey, who is our Case Manager Director. Next to her, we have Ms. Poland, who is Ms. Estridge, who is our Chief Probation Officer. And then finally, we have Ms. Hahn, who is also with our HR department.
Before you get started, I'm sorry,
Yes.
since we do have Judge Bloom, can you just come up and say hello? Or whatever you want to say, but hello. Well, y'all must be on lunch break. We got to get y'all back over to the juvenile court. The whole court is over here.
Good afternoon to Madam President and the commissioners and staff. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting my staff and allowing us this space on your agenda to speak with you about what we truly believe is one of the most important things going on in our court right now. And we have all been working really hard. The staff that came with us today, I was sort of looking around thinking like, oh man, if something happens at the court, right? Who's watching them? But it's truly heartwarming to have these staff here supporting not just Liz, but me and the mission of the court right now. And Judge DeGraff and Reed sends her regards. She is actually out. She has a vacation planned before this. Otherwise, she would be with us here too. And we join together in support of our administrators and the administration and their request of you today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. The request that I'm making today is to address some inequities in the juvenile court pay scale on behalf of staff. As I'm sure you are all aware, attraction and retention of staff is becoming increasingly difficult across the country. Fair and equitable pay is one significant contributing factor for the retention and attraction of employees in this environment. And that is what I am here to request today. Our goal is to right-size salaries and to offer our full-time employees a livable wage with a manageable workload. We want to provide our employees a supportive, robust work environment that enables them to meet the needs of the children and families we serve, as well as the needs of their own families. Currently, 13% of our staff work a second job in order to make ends meet. And according to state and federal guidelines for a family of 4, 10% of our staff qualifies for Medicaid and SNAP benefits. I'm sure that you will all agree with me that a county employee should not qualify for state and federal subsidies, nor should they have to work a second job in order to support their family. And especially when you consider the difficult type of work that we ask our employees to do on a daily basis. So before I tell you what I'm asking for, I'd like to take a brief moment and show you who I'm making these requests on behalf of. What I'm about to show you is a brief video that may be shocking, but it aptly demonstrates the dedication and quality of the juvenile court staff that we have and are seeking to retain, as well as the real-life challenges that they face on a daily basis when they come to work. As you can see from that video, our staff is well trained. They do what their job responsibilities require of them, and they do it without using force back against people who are clearly engaging in dangerous behavior. These things can happen quickly, without notice, and they do become dangerous for staff. And this is just one of the many examples that I could share with you of the difficult and dangerous work that our employees have to do on a daily basis. Now, I don't want to leave you with the impression that this is a daily thing that happens at our court, but we do have incidents on a regular basis where staff can be threatened or harmed. And it's not just our juvenile correction officers who can face these difficulties on a daily basis when they come to work. We have clerks, case managers, magistrates, probation officers, and a variety of other amazingly committed people who on a daily basis show up to work, provide service with a smile to customers who on a routine basis feel it's acceptable to scream profanity at staff, to shout at them, to threaten physical harm, and sometimes to actually attempt to engage in physical harm against our employees. So now that you have an idea of who I'm here representing, I'd like to tell you what it is here that we are here asking for today. The court is requesting to implement a standard 40-hour work week for most employees, with the exception of magistrates who were hired before January of 2022, who will remain at 35 hours a week. Additionally, we are asking to add positions to alleviate the current backload of cases, which has resulted from a combination of the pandemic and pre-existing staffing shortages, to ensure that we have adequate staff so work can be completed in a timely manner on behalf of residents of Hamilton County that we serve. To give you just a few examples of some of the increases that we are facing in our workload, in 2022, our number of custody hearings increased by 22%. And over a 2-year period, that increase was 42%. Additionally, our assessment center from 2021 to 2022 had an increase in request for services by 55%. This is a trend that we are continuing to see in 2023, and we expect it to continue in an upward trajectory throughout the year. Additionally, we're asking for positions to alleviate the current backlog. We are also asking for a pay raise for $2 to $4 for our lowest paid employees, and for a majority of our staff, a 5% wage increase. The 5% increase is only slightly higher than the generous 3.5% raise and 1% bonus that this commission has already authorized for this year. Finally, we're asking that you make this request retroactive to the beginning of the year. However, we do understand that the county does have budgetary constraints, and if you believe it is not possible to grant that pay retroactive, in lieu of that request, we would request a 3.5% bonus to all juvenile court staff across the board. According to market research, we believe our request is in line with or below market comparables. Before concluding, I want to share with you that the juvenile court remains committed to our diligent search for grants and other funding resources in an effort to reduce the direct cost to the county and to be good public stewards of funds. Every year, the juvenile court budget has approximately 15 to 20% of its cost paid through federal, state, and other grants and subsidies that our court actively pursues, applies for, and administers. Some examples of the allocations that we receive are Title 4D funding, Title 4E funding, Department of Youth Service grants, as well as Ohio Department of Education grants, just to name a few. So in conclusion, it is my privilege to serve as the court administrator on behalf of Judge Bloom, Judge DeGraff and Reed, and the entire Hamilton County Juvenile Court family, who on a daily basis I see doing hard, often gut-wrenching work on behalf of the families in Hamilton County and their children. Thank you for your time and attention today, and my staff and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here. It's not often that we have so many people from one department come in. So really appreciate you helping us better understand the face of the department. And thank you to the judge for being here, of course. So I do have a couple of questions for you and also for the administrator. And Commissioner Reese will be back, and I'll also turn it over to Commissioner Summer-Odumas. But when you, to put this in context, so the county, a number of years ago, when we had the capacity to do so, did a competitive wage study to better understand where we stood in our comparable set, right, with Cuyahoga and Montgomery County and Franklin County, also Warren Butler, Claremont, to get a better sense of how we bring people into the organization and keep people in the organization. And so we launched into the study, we got the results of that, and then we responded by way of an adjustment when needed, where needed, and some folks didn't need it at all. So it was a really helpful tool for us to use. So when you talk about your competitive wages, have you conducted a study so that you can understand where the competitive set lies throughout the state?
So we have not individually conducted a study, but Mr. Aludo and staff from the commission were very generous and had shared and helped us in our budget analysis as we went through this and took a look at comparables with them.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yeah, sure.
if I could. As Ms. Igo indicated, so that was one of the things that we had asked, was that juvenile court work with human resources to make sure that the evaluation and the analysis of the staff wages were done in accordance with the same methodology we had used. So to answer your question, while juvenile court didn't do their study themselves, as Ms. Igo indicated, we did assist them with an evaluation of their specific classification.
So there were metrics around it. There was, I 100% agree, as we did, that in order to keep good people, you need to compensate them for their service. And so I applaud the overall, the direction you're heading in to kind of right size the operation in juvenile court. One other thing that you mentioned, the going from a 35-hour work week to a 40-hour work week. Can you help me better understand the benefit? I don't fully appreciate that. I mean, to me, a work week is 40 hours, so I don't really understand what that's about, nor do I completely understand what the benefit is to going to the 40 versus what it used to be at 35.
So a large part of it has to do with management of workload. We are a a 35-hour-a-week court. Majority of our staff work 35. We've already have some that have moved to 40. We have standard 40 in our juvenile corrections office department and several other departments, but there's a large part of the court that has remained at 35 hours a week. In recognition of the increasing workload, we feel that moving to 40 hours a week will allow us to manage that workload in a way that will not require us to hire as many additional staff as we might if we remained at a 35-hour work week. The reason why we are not moving certain magistrates to that 40-hour work week really has to do with creating an equitable situation for magistrates who were brought in recently in the past 2 years who were provided compensation substantially higher than magistrates who had worked for the court for 10, some 20 plus years, and magistrates who were working at the court did not receive the benefit of having their salaries right-sized at that type under the prior administration. So we have magistrates who have worked for our court, just as an example, for 20, 30 years, who may make between $10,000 and $15,000 below what other magistrates are making who came in the last 2 years. So part of the reason why we're leaving them at 35 hours a week and adjusting their pay scale up would be to compensate for the fact that that was not done under the prior administration.
So, yeah, I just have 2 more questions. Because you just prompted something. So when we looked at what we did by way of compensation and workload, and we've had these conversations with the sheriff's office, with a number of different departments throughout the county. It was all in the context of the fact that for a number of years, this has been, I'm going back a ways, we didn't have any pay increases at the county for 5 years. It was frozen, and then past that, the increase was very small. And so what we were dealing with was this environment in which we had employees that hadn't gotten increases or anything substantial in quite a few years, and it affected morale. It affected who we could recruit into the organization. It affected who we could keep. So I am not familiar with that context when it comes to juvenile court. Can you provide that for us?
So what I can tell you is that juvenile court, we were 7 years without a raise. And I know that because I was there through all of it. So we were for quite some time without a raise. And as we looked at this budget, we are trying to bring the lowest up to a livable wage. And I have had conversations with employees across the board where I've talked to people who have said that they have concerns with the court bringing the bottom up without making an adjustment for the top ends. And in the discussions that I've had with them, I've been pretty frank that we can't do it all at once. And our highest priority is to get a livable wage for all employees. Our intention going forward to continue to right size and adjust for staff who have tenure with the court is that as we go forward in future years for raises that you may authorize, part of our combination to decide how that will be paid will include a retention piece of it so we can address that inequity that exists.
So I just have one quick last question. What's the budget impact? What you're talking about? When you look at all of what you would like to see happen, what is the dollar amount associated with that?
So I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Wolford, Head of Finance.
Hi, Commissioners. Brian Wolf, Director of Finance, Juvenile Court. The memo that was sent out, that we had projected about $4.5 million. That's $800,000 is moving from a 35 to a 40-hour work week. $1 million of that would be the wage adjustments, and then about $2.7 million is new positions in the court. The budget office and the administrator had made recommendations for $2.7 million, and most of that reduction involves the fact that now we're halfway through the year, so it's reducing really how much it would cost. That's even taking into account the retroactivity piece of it, because people weren't working as many hours, so it would be less. And also, it wouldn't necessarily involve the new hires. Obviously haven't necessarily been hired yet, the new positions we've created. So 2.7 is the total budget impact as we stand right now.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions for me?
Well, I'm not going to continue to hog the microphone, so I'm going to kick it over.
Thank you. Don't go too far.
Okay.
Commissioner Dumas. You go ahead, yeah.
Okay. I would like to
Your
ask-
microphone.
I would like to ask you a question. The 2.7 million, is that inclusive of increased health benefits? Because if you're working 35 and then go to 40 hours a week, doesn't that increase your health benefits or not?
It's my understanding it's
The budget office, I think, who had put these numbers together, that would be all inclusive. That would be the entirety. So I don't know if Frank's already nodding yes, so. Got it.
All right.
so anybody already working 35 hours would already be entitled to health care. So when the 40 is not going to create additional benefits from that sense, but it would impact things, for example, of Medicaid and PERS and those types of contributions that are based on a percentage of income.
Okay, thank you. And, I mean, let's face it, juvenile court is really a residue of some of the violence, a lot of the violence that takes place out in the streets. So I thank God for all of you and what you do. I'm just really impressed with all the staff that are here. It's really impressive, and it just shows either you forced them or that they see how important it is. I thought your presentation was profound, just how you presented it and how concise it was. So I don't know who wrote it, but you did a good job in delivery. But and your mission, all of you, your mission is just life-changing. So I'm familiar with juvenile court. I've been in there, done some therapy in there. And I think your request is more than reasonable. So I appreciate you recognizing, acknowledging where you are and trying to get in front of it and come in front of us. So I certainly appreciate everything that you guys are doing and also the information that I received. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
That's all you have? Okay. Thank you for the presentation, and more importantly, thank you for what you're doing. We are in a situation, and not just in Hamilton County, but across the country, with the increase in youth violence and the balance of rehabilitation, and putting kids on the right path and not the wrong path, but also understanding that there are some very severe dangers that are happening that you have to face and deal with every day. And I just think the changing times, juvenile court is not facing what juvenile court had to face 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And we do need to make sure that the people that are working, we want the best working. We don't want to just get someone, grab a job that really doesn't have a passion or expertise for the job, because then we'll start seeing some things that we don't want to see that's happening to children and also the safety of our employees. So I take juvenile court very, very serious, and looking forward to working with the administration and you to make sure that we are hiring the best. We are not just grabbing anybody off the street because we need bodies. In order to do that, we've got to pay people, because there are things that our workers have to go through mentally, take these things home, physically, all those things that they have to go to. But I want the best working at our juvenile court, those who understand the children, know when you need to be tough, and then also when there needs to be tough love, and then when there is opportunity to change a child's life and turn them around. So I'm certainly open to working with the administrator. I don't know, Mr. Administrator, where do we go from here?
Yeah, so if the board is generally supportive, there's no real action that needs to happen today or even on Thursday. What we typically do on these things, assuming we know we have board concurrence, is we'll continue to work with court administration on this as we get through the year, as we do with any department. If we get to, typically around October is when we will start to look at budget fixes. We're already doing, you've seen the first quarter projections. We will monitor juvenile court over that period of time as we get later on in this year. If we can get all the way to third quarter, we'll wait to do the adjustment towards then. If we need to do it sooner, we'll do it sooner. But just wanted to make sure the board is supportive generally of the approach, given what you've heard today. But we'll monitor it throughout the year. We never let anyone fail, so we won't go too far down the road without bringing the adjustment. But if we can make, what we always try to do is see if we can make it as far as to the big fix that we do in October, we'll make it to then. If we have to come back earlier, we will. But we'll keep the board updated as we do the next quarterly projection as well.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Are my colleagues okay, Vice President Treehouse, Commissioner Dumas?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the question about retroactivity and whether or not we were in agree, and I am in agreement with that.
I think this number included retroactive, right? 2.7 million? That include retro? I thought he mentioned that based on my notes, but I might have had it wrong.
It should include that. I think that we had put in that instead of the retroactivity, if we did a 3.5% bonus, that would reduce that 2.7 million down to about 300 to 400,000 less than that. That's the amount of savings we could do by doing the.
We need to know, Mr. Finance Director, you better get us while you got us.
Yeah.
Mr.
So I mean,
get us where.
And just a little context on that.
Yes,
So
just a little.
the proposal, as was indicated, is the 2.7, and we had and I directed Mr. Brugan and Mr. Bentley, who are the budget director and budget analyst, to look for as many possible savings here as we can as well, while still staying true to the spirit of correcting the inequities. So if the board is comfortable with the retroactive, that is the number that you see. If we were looking for some additional savings there is a way to do some things that would reduce the total, but that's at the board's discretion.
So with the retroactive, I'm looking at Mr. Brugan's report that you gave us. And Mr. Brugan report does have the 2.7, that would include the retro.
that would.
It would be less if we don't do the retro.
Correct.
So we need to,
I would like to see that parsed out myself. And I would also like to better understand, and this is not really a question for you, but rather for the administration to better understand, if we're going to do this outside the budget process, which is what I hear you talking about, then I think we need to understand where our revenues are, where the money's coming from. I mean, and parse out that retroactive piece just in case, because my sense is that you're not the only department that's behind. I know you're not. I've heard from others, and they're going to be coming as well to ask for the same kind of thing. And again, I think it's appropriate. Some of our folks have not been paid, as you say, adequately for a number of years, and it's time to right size what's going on. But there are other departments that are not under the control of the board, but rather the elected officials, and they too are going to be coming to right size what their operations are doing. So I just want to get, if just from my information, if nothing else, just that peel out that retroactive piece so we can see what we're looking at.
So generally in here, it's 300 to 400,000 in savings by doing the bonus instead of the retroactive pay. We can go ahead and to do the full retroactive piece, that would include perhaps the overtime and hours actually worked. So there's a few different methods to do it, but generally 300 to 400,000 is what we would save by doing the bonus at 3.5% rather than retroactive pay.
okay. Well,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We do understand that there are budgetary constraints that
Sure.
that the commission has to live with, and if a retroactive pay is not something that's workable at this time, 3.5% bonus across the board for staff would be something that they would be greatly appreciative of. So.
okay, well, Commissioner Dumas.
I was going to say, don't settle for that. But what I'm saying is, I heard Jeff say that there's some savings we can have, and when I say retroactive, I don't just throw it out there. Sorry, I'm sure that our HR, our finance have looked at what we can afford and not afford. So I would say leave it on the table, and then see.
Put it on the table.
So see where we are.
I'm the one that would like to understand
Yeah.
how much it is on the table, so that
just-
we know what we're talking about.
We all do.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, just a little bit more context. So some of this total of this 2.7 has already been projected into the Q1 projections. So about $1 million of that, I think we're already projecting in Q1 as in the juvenile court budget. I would also say that the 2.7 includes that 1.3 of new positions, and as much as we all hope that that materializes for service reasons, that's not a given either. So this is kind of an upper end that, we all know the challenges of recruiting. If we don't get that full recruitment allotment, obviously that number is not going to materialize either. So that's another reason to kind of hold on the budget supplement, is just to see where we actually are as we get further into the year. But Commissioner Driehaus, to your point, I'm happy to, after this meeting this week, work with the budget office to give you and the rest of the board a little bit more information on parsing all that out, as you indicated.
Can I ask you a question on this report? It
Certainly.
has on here juvenile requests, 4.545 million. That's the request.
That was the request.
Original request.
And that was for a full year.
For a full year,
Full
okay.
year.
And then the 2.7 would be additional
would be when we
half of the year.
It's essentially half of the year with some other smaller savings built in as well.
I'm with you. And then also in here, it also says it includes some small capital items too. There's some personnel items in this.
There are some non-personnel items, I think, are some additional requests of the court that we're going to continue to work with them on and bring those forward on a case-by-case basis as we need them, but those are not included.
Not included in here.
In this specific request. Yeah.
I just want to reiterate, I think those capital items are very important. I don't know what they are, but I just know that.
So
I thank y'all for working in that building.
So
That
one of the
place
capital
does not-
expenses.
Hold on 1 second.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you for working in that building, and I know we're working on some things. I thought, can we just power wash it? You said it'll fall down if I power wash it. So we're working on some other things, but just know juvenile court, we have, as a board, brought those things important of that building and trying to work on those things as quickly as possible. So, okay, yes.
I was just going to add that one of the major expenses that we did add this year immediately was when we took over this administration, the prior administration had authorized a prison menu for the children. Judge Bloom and Judge DeGraff and Reed and I were not comfortable with that, so we immediately moved back to a school lunch menu. We were also feeding the children that we have 3 to 4 ounces of protein and a half cup of starch with their meals. Now, I had 2 growing boys, and as a lady, when I'm eating 3 to 4 ounces of protein, I'm strictly dieting. So we immediately doubled the amount of food that we were providing to the kids, and that cost over $66,000 just to be able to do that. But it was such an important matter that we were feeding kids appropriately and giving them the nutrition and that they needed, that we acted immediately. That was the first thing that Judge Bloom asked me to address when I became the court administrator.
Awesome, great job, great job. So I guess where we are here, that we all are in agreement of looking into this. Mr. Ludo will continue to work with you as we look at the quarter reports are coming in. If there are some issues, and I know Vice President Driehaus wants some additional information that we all have access to. If there are some issues, then we will bring it back to make sure you can answer those questions. But I think generally we're saying, hey, let's try to
I don't really
work
have
it out.
issues so much as I just would, because the retroactive piece is like a one-time thing, so that's not an ongoing budgeted need, and so I just want to understand the numbers. I'm supportive. I think it's a great idea. We did the same thing, but I just want to parse that out so we know what the ongoing cost is versus what the budget is. That's all.
All right, anything else?
No, thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Judge, I can hit this. You may leave. Thank you all for being here. Okay. Next, we have a prevention request for proposal, and the zoo brought a big crowd. The juvenile court brought a big crowd. Jobs and Services, we shouldn't even be able to get in this building if you brought your crowd. Welcome back, Director.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Madam Vice President, Commissioner Dumas. I'm here today to give you an update on where things stand relative to our prevention request for proposal. We've talked, I think, over the last several months about the generous citizens of Hamilton County in 2021 passing a Children's Services levy, and our team internally with our contracting team and Children's Services team have really done a good job of looking at how we might be able to take advantage of our local levy dollars to look further upstream and how we serve children and families in Hamilton County. For those of you watching, historically, our state and federal funding and also levy funding, we have directed those funds primarily to children in care. And so children who are in foster care, the partnerships we have with our foster care agencies, independent living organizations, other services that are provided directly to children in care has been our model related to funding our children that are in the custody of Job and Family Services. Tax Levy Review Committee was clear in their recommendations when they provided them to Hamilton County. So we talk about Tax Levy Review Committee, interestingly enough, today, and their recommendations. A lot of the recommendations had to do with JFS and our efforts to leverage levy dollars further upstream. We talk about child violence. We talk about having an opportunity to use those dollars to really look at ways to address at-risk youth and families who may be more inclined to ultimately come into the care of Job and Family Services because of maltreatment. So today's presentation talks a little bit about where we stand as it relates to that RFP and what we hope to accomplish as a result of that. So today I'll talk a little bit about goals related to our RFP, our scope of services that we are looking for. We'll talk about the contract terms and funding, and also talk about our target areas. So some of the goals, and again, a lot of what you'll see today and what I'll discuss with you have come directly from Tax Levy Review Committee recommendations that we want to look to implement. So first of all, the goal for us at this first phase is to look at expanding county collaboration. When I say county, I'm talking about JFS collaboration with the community, but also community program expansion for organizations, programs that are already delivering services and may want to expand into further service delivery for at-risk youth. So we want to look at expansion of health services through co-located nursing and community health clinic partnerships aligned with the public health model of care, specialized birth to three programming for infants, crisis stabilization, respite resources, for example, protective child care is an example of that, to ensure safety, promote stability, prevent child removals, congregate care, and out-of-state placement, expansion of academic tutoring, enrichment, and community-based mental health resources. Some additional goals include expansion of in-home, culturally respectful parenting training and family treatment services, diversion of family homelessness through availability of concrete goods, emergency assistance, and resources for families, transition age youth programming, specifically young adults emancipating in need of aftercare services, such as resources for financial counseling, housing, career planning, etc. Community-based services designed to help kinship, formal or informal arrangements, families navigate and access financial, health, wellness, and other parenting resources. So I'll talk a little bit about the scope of services as it relates to this RFP. Awarded to agencies that fully support HEJFS's goals of improving community outcomes related to safety, permanency, and well-being of children, youth and families, and addressing racism, poverty, and its disparate impact on families. In addition, under our scope of services, there are some priority considerations that we have defined. Organizations providing services in minority neighborhoods that are affected by public health crisis will receive priority considerations, as will organizations with minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, disability-owned businesses, and other certifications. So really the goal here, from our vantage point, was to try to reach providers that may not have traditionally been doing business with Job and Family Services in a way that gives them an opportunity to compete for these dollars. There are a lot of organizations that we believe are doing good work in the community, and so we wanted to provide a really broad opportunity for those opportunities for those companies and organizations to potentially participate in accessing these funds. The other thing that we wanted to point out is that for this first phase is demonstrated effectiveness. Contract awards will be to nonprofit organizations or LLCs that have demonstrated effectiveness in delivering prevention or intervention services to at-risk children, youth, and families. We'll talk about the funding. Funding is limited to funding to services delivered to children and families who are residents of Hamilton County. So that's the limitation as of right now, pretty broad, as you can see. Related to referrals, JFS may make referrals to the program, and so a lot of cases we will contract with providers to do work with families in care, like I said before, and so typically that is dependent on our caseworkers being familiar with the families, assessing the needs of the families, making referrals to these organizations to fulfill the contract, right? In this particular case, we wanted to sort of differentiate that just a little bit because these children and families may or may not be in the custody of Job and Family Services. And so while we may make referrals, the primary source of referrals for prevention programs will be other community organizations or self-referrals from clients. Organizations awarded contracts will be given priority to will give priority to JFS referrals over clients referred from other sources. Contract term and funding. Contracts are for a 24-month period. Starting in November, we hope to have everything completed and be able to start entering into contracts by November 1st of 2023. That contract term goes from November 1st through October 31st of 2025. Organizations must have been in operation for at least 3 years. Any proposed program must have been operating for at least 1 year. JFS does not fund startup programs. Only one program proposal per organization will be accepted. Providers must submit monthly invoices after services are delivered. We cannot prepay for services. And contract award, no guarantee for continuing funding once the contract expires. That is typical language that we would have in our contracts as well. And just so you guys are aware, I do want to point out a couple of timeframes here as it relates to that. So I'm giving you an update, but I want to let you know that the RFP was released actually on May 17th. We've run ads in the Inquirer, the Herald. It's been blasted through our JFSPC partners, United Way, Strategies to End Homelessness, and others. We had our first bidders conference Friday, June 9th. There were 40 participants and representing 16 organizations at that conference Friday. The proposals for the RFP are due July 28th. And again, the goal is to start services, enter into contracts starting November 1st. Target areas. Providers, again, for this initial RFP, the need is for trauma-informed community-based services designed to help kin navigate families and access financial, health, wellness, and other concrete goods or resources for families. The target population here are families who are caring for kin under a formal family arrangement or formal legal arrangements. The next target areas are safety, health, and wellness for infants and children birth to 5. The need is access to safe respite care for after-school summer programs, recreation, cultural, respectful parent education services, child development resources, family support coaches, homelessness prevention, legal advocacy, etc. The target population here are families with children birth to 5. And then the next area, target area, are services and supports for at-risk youth ages 14 to 24, access to trauma-informed, culturally responsive, tailored supports and resources, including lived experience youth navigators, parent mentors, life skill coaches, concrete goods, tailored health and wellness resources, accessible social, developmental, and recreational options, short-term emergency housing, homelessness prevention services, etc. Again, the target population for this area is youth ages 14 to 24. Communities most in need should be reflected by the zip codes I'll share with you in just a second. Average childhood poverty rate in the United States is 19%. Ohio's average is 22%. All but one of the zip codes that I'll share with you next are above the state average of 22%. So really the communities we're looking at are in the zip codes that are reflected on this slide, and those are the areas that we want to focus the resources and leverage the financing to address in our community in Hamilton County. That's based on what we've seen in terms of poverty numbers. Okay, so that is the conclusion of the presentation today. I have Margie Weaver, who is our Director of Children's Services here. Laura Wolf, and Margie worked really hard to bring this to fruition. This was new territory for us, and so I'm really proud that they took the step to start to look at how we could use levy dollars differently to address prevention in our community. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for your presentation, and of course, all that you do. A lot of this, you have to deal with so many things that can get complicated. I know it's complicated for me, and I'm here at the county. I wanted to ask you, do you know offhand how much money is left over in that levy?
Not offhand, but I can
Roundabout, or can you get that to us?
I can get that to you, yeah.
Okay,
sure.
That's very important, because what I don't want to do, I'm looking at, if we're not using, I don't want to just start forcing stuff out the door.
Right.
I'd rather refund the taxpayers than to rush it out the door if we don't need it. Last time I thought it was about $100 million that was left over, and I don't want to just start creating programs because we've got money. I'm not saying you're doing that, but I don't want people forcing you to do it when we could give it back to the taxpayers if it's not needed.
No, Commissioner, I think that's a really good point. I can get that number to you exactly, but this really for me is about prevention and about doing something different and new with levy dollars that we've not done before. And so I think if we have the opportunity to expand programming for youth in the community and to see whether or not we can start to address or impact circumstances for families that might create environments where children end up in our care, I think it's an important way for us to move forward and look at how those interventions might have an impact on us as an organization, certainly on the health and well-being of children in the community. So, our goal is to really leverage these funds and to see if we can address these needs in a way that JFS hasn't done before.
Gotcha. I want to rephrase that. I'm not against new stuff because I'm advocating that, but I think we could do new stuff, but we still got a whole lot of money left over. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to know, not to stop this program, but how much money is left over. Can you tell us how much is this program? How many contracts are we talking about?
Well, we're having, it's a broad net, so we don't know exactly until we get the responses from the RFP back. So we really wanted to make sure we captured what the community and what was available in the community in terms of services. So we anticipate, based on knowing and seeing the number of applicants we receive, we can calculate what we anticipate that 2-year contract term will look like based on the services that they tell us they are interested in providing and what ultimately we approve in terms of those organizations. So we can let you know towards the end of July what the anticipated cost would look like.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. So that's RFP and not RFQ?
RFP.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
You can put an RFP out with no money, just say, hey, we're looking for this.
Correct.
How much does it cost? I always thought that was RFQ.
That is an RFP based on my understanding, yes.
Yeah, an RFP would typically go out and request for proposals where someone would come in and say, this is what we're looking to provide, and the cost. RFQ would be request for qualifications, another procurement method that typically would come in and would not have a cost associated with it at all. And then once you chose the best qualifications, you would then sit down and negotiate the price on that. So you're correct, Commissioner, 2 separate procurement methodologies, but this one, an RFP, we would go out and get a proposal in and the cost for doing that proposal.
Correct.
Yeah, because I've never seen an RFP go out without a number on it.
Yeah.
And
well, we work really
always
closely.
Has a RFP is usually like when we do grants.
Sure.
It's an RFP. It's $1 million.
Sure.
It's an RFP. It's $50,000. And then usually RFQ is your request for qualifications. Right. You tell us about what you can do. and then you tell us what the cost is.
Right.
But we're doing RFP and we're having no dollar amount. We're just putting it out there.
Right.
Here's what we're looking for and how much does it cost? How would we decide then who would get it? How would we do that if?
I think reviewing the types of service delivery and what the model looks like and whether or not they're able to address what we believe the needs are that I just described in the presentation. Also, I think the other thing to point out is there was a few examples of where other counties also have levies, and Franklin County was one of the counties in which they had moved forward and done a prevention type of RFP in the past. And so we worked with Franklin County, looked at their model, and took a lot of recommendations in terms of how they modeled and structured their RFP after our own.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good. That's something different. I was wondering. Now, when you put this out, I guess, I know you said no startups. I kind of get that part. But a lot of times we put stuff out, we keep getting the same people. And nothing against the Talbot House, but the Talbot House director, he is now retired. So a lot of people would do it based on, Neil. People knew Neil. They have a new director. I haven't met them. They live in Kentucky. And if Talbot House is getting, whoever knows how to fill out these they have a person that know how to do it.
Right.
How do we get new, I'm not saying we don't go at the Talbot House, but how do we really get community new ideas if, I know Commissioner Dumas had brought this up a lot about having, breaking things up because usually we come with the same people, get the contracts, because they know how to, especially when you say there's no prepay. So in other words, this is all reimbursable, and we're not the fastest at paying people. So how would we get new community, people doing something good in the community, how can they get in on it if these big conglomerates, if you will, always get all the contracts?
I'm going to have Margie step up and address that. I know Laura is on the call as well, and their team kind of worked through this with with the prosecutors, purchasing, making sure that we were doing what we could and providing as much flexibility as we could to address and reach non-traditional applicants. So I'll let Margie talk a little bit about that. And if Laura's on the call, you can feel free to jump on and maybe. Oh, you've turned Zoom. Okay, that's fine. Well, Laura's not on the call, so we'll address that. Right.
Juvenile court. No, I was kidding. But I just wanted to know that because that was a question a lot of people ask. How did they get in?
Thank you, Commissioners. So we did consider that, and what we looked at is this is really you do have an advantage when you're a large organization and you're very established. You always have an advantage in these situations. So we really looked at, we wanted to engage providers that we had not traditionally engaged in, partly because of their work and mainly because of their ability to be competitive with some of our other providers. So we set bids. The bidding process really and the inquiry and the response are very simplified. That's why we did ask for established resources, so folks who come to the table and demonstrate that they can do this. They know how to do this work. We're looking for community-based, community-embedded providers who know their community and know the needs. So that's how we attempted to remove barriers. The awards are limited, so this is our first try at this, and so we wanted to be as conservative. We wanted to take some risk. We wanted to move upstream in the prevention arena, but also be mindful of taxpayer dollars and how we're spending those dollars, and make sure that those dollars are getting to children and families who need those services. So the application is pretty simple, quite frankly. It really is demonstrating that you are serving your community, that you're serving a need in your community, and the awards are up to $100,000 per year, so $200,000 total for 2 years, and really to expand services either geographically or expand services to a broader population. The other thing is this is just new, and we are just getting into this, and so we know that we also have to get community feedback, and we can't assume what the community needs. We haven't worked in that space enough to know what our communities need, and so our next phase of this is engaging community facilitator to help us get into the community. We have a
pending contract with Cohere. And hopefully that will enable us to better understand this space and what the community needs are, and hear from our community about what their needs are and where, and get their guidance and suggestions about how we should be spending these dollars to help these families.
Thank you. That was really helpful because it brought some more context. One is we do have a number, 100,000 to 200,000 per contract. So we do have a number on the RFP. Number two, I was going to ask you about a facilitator, someone who could kind of bring the community in. So that's great.
Yes, and that's in the works. And I think, and this is loose, I think we just, in our budget, we allocated $8 million for prevention services. And again, those are upstream, hopefully preventing children from coming into the juvenile justice system, as you saw, hoping, prevent children coming in to the child protection system. There is a huge overlap statistically in terms of children who have experienced maltreatment and children who have then later in life are in the juvenile justice system.
Gotcha. And then on the priority consideration, we have, through our disparity study, we created an MBE and a WBE program. I do support VBE and DOBE, but I wanted to make sure that that's not lumped in. Saying you got a little baby pool and you put everybody in the every minority you could think of is in the baby pool. Then you got the deep end, and then 2 or 3 companies, they get all the deep end money.
Right.
So I want to make sure that it's specifically pulled out, the MBE, WBE, and then the VBE is its own, and then DOBE is on. I don't want to have one little baby pool and then put everybody, keep adding people in there. And at the end of the day, it's like a pool. All you get is sprinklers on you. You don't get to swim.
Yeah, I think our goal to, at least this time around, as we enter into this and sort of learn what the process looks like for us, is to categorize those as priority considerations. So we want to make sure that those applicants that have that, we're looking at that as a priority consideration as we evaluate the proposal and see whether or not we ought to fund that. So as it stands now, those are going to be treated as priority considerations for those certifications.
Yeah, I just want to make sure on the reporting side, Mr. Bell's side, I don't want to come in and have a pool and we've got no MBEs. All of a sudden, MBEs is thrown to the side, WBEs is thrown to the side. That's a program and that needs to be captured.
Yeah.
And then the others, we have a program and that should be captured. It should not be just a total number. Say, wow, look what we've done.
I think that makes sense. And I know Laura has been talking with Mr. Bell throughout the process, particularly for our contracts in general, and how we can make sure that when we do enter into contracts for services at JFS, we have a way to track and categorize that so we understand exactly who we're reaching, who we're doing business with, and it's not grouped together. So we continue to work through that. Okay. And I think that's an important point to be made. And we'll certainly, as that comes about, track those in a way that gives us some reporting to see what we're doing in that regard.
Gotcha. And then my last question, do you have a built-in ROI, since this is kind of new? What was the return on the investment?
Yeah, that's a really good.
A year later, or some kind of reporting to us?
I think that's a good question. I struggle with that personally as we started to think about what the implications might be, what the measurable impact might be. And really what the research says is that we know that those investments can make a difference. I hesitate to say that there's going to be a reduction in the number of children coming into care a year from now by making these investments. I don't think it's a direct causal connection all the time, but I do think that there's some value, and I think our goal would be to assess and evaluate those programs based on the contractual language that we've put in there in terms of whether or not they're meeting the goals that we establish as we write the contract. And as we monitor that, and if Laura was on the call, I'm sure she would concur with this, is that our goal is really to craft the contracts to make sure that they're meeting the expectation and the demand that they propose that they would, and that those families are better off and more safe, more secure, in a better position as they interact with these programs and services than they otherwise would have been. But as I stand here before you, I don't have a specific number, but I do know that our goal is really to make sure that those programs and services, which we do across all of our contracts are meeting the outlined expectations in those contracts for families. A lot of times that comes from surveys, that comes from on-site visits, that comes from interviewing the providers directly, answering and asking questions about program delivery, et cetera. So we'll continue that process to ensure that the service delivery is being maintained at a high level.
Yeah, I just think that should be built in on every contract, some type of ROI. How many people we serve, some anecdotal stories. I think that's important to us. I always say, I support a lot of organizations, and I've been around a long time. I used to be like, shouldn't your goal be to be going out of business if you're doing your job? On some people, you do so well, it should be, we're out of business now because we've helped so many people. We know that that's not realistic for everybody, but we just need to show something.
And those measurements and outcomes will be built into contracts. So there will not be money being being issued or distributed without those contract outcomes being well defined and clear for both us and the provider. So that is included in all of our contracts.
Awesome. Vice President Trias.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being here. So I just want to applaud this approach. I think, you have the opportunity to do something different, as you say, and try to prevent kids from coming into the system to begin with. And I think that is a very smart strategy. It's great for the community. It's great for families, and it, in the end, will save us dollars when it comes to the system itself. But primarily, it's just good for kids. So I was going to ask a similar question. I think I appreciate the idea it's going to be hard to measure because prevention is just hard to measure, no matter what you're trying to prevent, because it didn't happen. So it's hard to measure that. So beyond the numbers of kids entering the system, what other measures are you looking at? Just give us a flavor for that, if there are other measures that you're looking at.
I think that's a good question. Mark, you want to? No, I think maltreatment in general, poverty numbers, but it's a broad, sort of understanding. So my thought, and Mark, if you have some additional comments, feel free to share that. But again, I go back to getting into the weeds of what a particular provider says that they're going to do as it relates to the youth that they're touching every single day. And if those outcomes, I think, are achieved, then we can say, I believe, with some certainty that they're having an impact. They're making an impact on the safety and well-being of those children. But I hear you. I think that's a really, really good question, and we can certainly think more about broadly as we report back the outcome of what happens, where we think some of those metrics may have been influenced. If we can say that either directly, or we can make some correlations between the investments that we make and what those outcomes are for our kids in the community. But
because obviously you're measuring what the agencies are telling you they're going to do, and you have to measure that, right? And so that's kind of clear cut. The harder one to determine is what the impact of this idea is, or rather what the program is. And I will be interested to see, intuitively what you think through as we move through the process, because maybe it'll come, and maybe the providers themselves will have ideas about what those measurements should look like. But I think it's a smart approach. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to do something different because I think JFS, because of the emergent nature of what you do for kids, has to be reactive in many ways. And so this proactive approach is interesting and unique. And so I'll be very interested to kind of track this with you all to see what we see by way of the measurements.
What I would like to see, Commissioner, more than anything, is that we invest $8 million and we see a reduction in the number of kids coming into care in JFS. That's what I would like to see. That, to me, would be a direct sort of, maybe not a direct, but we could certainly make that correlation that we believe this investment had an impact there, even if it's not kid to kid. So, like you said, we wouldn't know if they came into care, if they were prevented from coming into care, but certainly the numbers coming in the front door, I would hope would have an impact on, this investment would have an impact on that.
Great, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Commissioner Dumas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just think that this is a very creative way of dealing with prevention. We need some new ways to do that. I can remember hearing an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so I think about the juvenile court people that were here and that we will see an impact on the juvenile court and a lessening of the young people that come in there. I certainly think this will have a trickle-down effect on the families and the children that we work with. I wondered in the RFP, did you put anything in there about follow-up, that whoever receives the RFP, they have to do some sort of, not only outcomes, but follow-up on the ones who they work with? Is that part
I
of it?
believe that kind of specificity will come when we begin to enter the contract discussion, negotiations in terms of what the reporting structure is going to look like,
Okay.
what the outcomes are going to look like, and typically that reporting would come as a condition of that contract.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you. Now, what are we doing? Do we have to do something?
You don't have to do anything.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to
I think
update you
they
so
said
you
it was
all,
time
so you all
sensitive. I
knew
thought we had to do something.
knew where things stood as it relates to that, and so that no action on the part of the board required today.
Okay, great. Well,
Thank
keep
you.
us updated on this, and we would, once the people get it, we'd like to come back and
Sure.
give a report where, we started with the RFP, and here's where we are now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you both. Okay, now we're gonna go to item 4 and 5. I make a motion to go in executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 12122G4 to discuss collective bargaining and to consider the sale or disposition of property.
Second.
Commissioner Reese.
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes.